Can you hear me on Google Meet?
I can hear now.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and just start over unless you want to start over, Chair.
Do you need me to start over? I can read that again if you want to. Okay, we're good.
Okay, I'll just keep going then. The current language refers to the physical maps adopted in 1984 as the official zoning map. The proposed language archives the physical county zoning maps of 1984 and adopts by reference the official zoning map as an electronic map layer within the County Geographic Information System, or GIS. The criteria of approval for amendments are found in Umatilla County Development Code sections 152-750 to 152-755. This matter is a legislative matter because it proposes to amend the text of the Umatilla County Development Code. Therefore, the county has the authority to consider and approve the text amendment. The process of approval by the county involves review by the County Planning Commission with a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. At the May 2nd, 2024 Planning Commission hearing, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed text amendment with a vote of 8-2. Included in your packets are the preliminary findings and conclusions and the proposed text amendment. And this concludes my staff report unless there are any questions.
Any questions from the board? Okay. At this time, I'll call for any proponents, applicant, and or representative.
That's the county staff, so we're good.
Okay. Any other proponents? Hearing and seeing none online or in the room, I'll call for opposition. Any opponents want to speak against? Yes, Sunny.
Hi, Sunny Danforth, 225 Maple Avenue, Milton Freewater. So I wanted to address this because one of my concerns as we had the hearing was if this is archiving all the paper records. And my concern is that it's all going digital, and digital and electronics can get hacked. There's nothing safe in our digital world, even though people will say that there is, that it is. So my concern is that if we're not keeping paper records, then, and when electronics go down or something gets hacked, then how are we going to settle an issue? Or somebody comes into the planning and now the planning records are not, planning is not keeping records, archives, as I recall, I think it was archives, is keeping all of this digitally. And you come in one day, your day off of work to come get something, they say, oh, sorry, the computer's down today. Currently, they can look at paper records and paper maps. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those are not be kept. And so that's a concern. And I bring this up because not very long ago, I had a doctor's appointment. And I went into my doctor's appointment and I checked in and they said, sorry, we can't see you today. The computer system's down. And I said, are you kidding me? I don't take medications. You know who I am. I can't see the doctor. And so this I look as the same thing of our property records and how they are. So that's my concern, is that we're not keeping paper records up to date and in our county planning office as well. That's my concern.
Did staff want to address that at all?
Yes. So right now we haven't had access to the program that we use for digital mapping. And again, it's still online. It's just with a different program for almost 3 years now. And so all of our paper maps in that meantime haven't been updated. We've been just hand drawing and have a list of the changes to the zones that have happened since the last print. So what we're asking to do is to take our GIS file that we already keep and maintain and have that be the official zoning map, still keeping our printed copies archived and still having a digital map that's on the website and saved to the county servers, for people to print out or request from our office.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So people can come in or they could print their own map from the GIS.
So we would have a GIS map on the county website like we already do. And that's available online for folks to print out at their homes or a place of work, or they could request one from our office.
Okay, and so when a developer comes and they need a big map,
They can request that from our office as well.
okay, and how much is a copy right now for a paper map?
I'm not sure. We have it in our fee schedule.
Okay. That's my concern.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'm going to set this down because this is kind of rickety. It's, so, well, I'll put that. That's kind of rickety.
Anybody else want to speak in opposition? Thank you. Okay. Any neutral comments? Okay, I'm assuming there's nothing from public agencies on this one.
No, sir.
Any rebuttal?
Nope,
Did
it's
that.
been covered.
Yeah. Okay. So at this time, we do a call for requests for the continuance or to keep the record open. If granted, staff will assist with the schedule or timeline, or we can close and deliberate. Okay. At this time, we'll close the hearing and we'll resume our regular scheduled hearing meeting, and we can deliberate on this topic. What are the wishes of the board?
Okay, Megan, I just want to clarify, there's a paper copy available.
Correct.
I have no comments, but I will move for approval.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Chair, can I have a request?
Yes.
Is somebody from IT here? Can we move this owl either one way or the other? Can we move the owl one way or the other? Just because when Sunny was speaking, I couldn't see her.
Dodging the owl.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to suspend our regular meeting again. And at this time, I'm going to open up another land use hearing. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll call this land use hearing before the Umatilla County Board of Commissioners to order. My name is John Schaefer, and I am the chair of the Umatilla County Board of Commissioners. Our role today is to conduct a public hearing to consider and modifying the limitations on use and dimensional standards regarding animal density and setbacks for animal sheltering structures among rural residential properties, as well as within our unincorporated forest and mountain residential zones. I will begin the hearing by asking staff to summarize the application. I will then ask the applicant to testify, followed by those in favor of the application. Then, any persons in opposition or who have questions or concerns will also have a chance to speak. If there is oppositions or questions, staff may respond to them. The commissioners also may ask the staff and witnesses questions throughout the hearing until the record closes. Any person with the interest in today's agenda may offer relevant oral and/or written testimony, but please only speak when I identify you for that purpose. When you testify, please begin by clearly stating your name and address. If you represent someone else, please say so. If you have any exhibits you want us to consider, such as a copy of your testimony, photographs, petitions, or other documents or physical evidence, please provide it to me or to the staff. It'll be marked as part of the record. Holding this microphone makes it real easy. At this time, I'm going to call for abstentions, bias, conflict of interest, declaration of ex parte contact, and objections to jurisdiction. Okay, seeing none. The following declaration is required to be read prior to the beginning of the hearing. A, the agenda identifies the applicable substantive criteria for evaluating the request. Staff will review these criteria. B, all testimony and evidence must be directed toward these criteria. C, failure to raise an issue with a sufficient detail to afford that decision-making body and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. At this time, I'll call for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Schaefer. I am Charlotte Hotchkiss, Planner 1. The request before you today is for proposed text amendment to the Umatilla County Development Code. You want to go to the next slide? The proposed amendment, sorry, Doug, next one. The proposed amendment would affect all properties within the following zones: multiple use forest, forest residential, mountain residential, unincorporated community, rural residential 2, rural residential 4, rural residential 10, commercial rural center, and future urban 10. These are all residential zones and other zones with existing animal density requirements. Next slide, please. Over the past several years, the Umatilla County Planning Division and Code Enforcement Department has received numerous complaints from residents regarding roosters and rural residential zones. Noise complaints due to roosters crowing day and night are most prevalent, but also complaints of people keeping large numbers of roosters presumed to be used for cockfighting have been made. Next slide, please. In order to remedy this ongoing situation in multiple residential zones within the county, the Planning Division has proposed new language within the limitations on use sections of multiple zones encompassed in the Umatilla County Development Code. The decision to do so was made at the direction of the Umatilla County Board of Commissioners, who will have the ultimate decision of whether or not to adopt the amendment. So this is a video from one of the properties we've received complaints about, numerous complaints over a number of years. Doug, if you want to press play, you might just be able to press the space bar.
Is there sound with this video or just the video?
There is. We're having technical difficulties. I think it's just that. Riley. What do we do? Like if he presses play. We're just going to move forward, but it's just a video of numerous roosters crowing on this property. I'm happy to email it to you guys later if you're interested in seeing it. So you can go to the next slide. Staff also decided to modify some of the language used within those sections in order to better clarify the meaning of the code, as well as to rearrange and organize certain language to sections where it makes more sense, such as moving the existing language regarding setbacks to animal sheltering structures, barns, large chicken coops, or other fowl coops, etc., to the dimensional standards section instead of having it in the limitations on use section of these zones. You can see this here. Doug, what you doing? Okay. So like here, this isn't changing at all. What happened? Okay. Sorry, guys. There we go. So as you can see here on the left side, this is the current language in the Umatilla County Development Code. And section D isn't changing at all. It's simply moving to the dimensional standards section of that zone because it makes a lot more sense to have it in that section since that's where we're talking about other setback requirements. Next slide, please, Doug. Throughout this process, other minor changes have been made with the well-being and proper care of animals in mind, as well as the health and quality of life for residents within the zones affected. For an example of why our department feels it is pertinent to include language regarding proper sanitation and maintenance, here are some of the photos taken by a county code enforcement officer of what is essentially a feedlot on a rural residential 2-acre minimum property. You could go to the next slide. As you can see in these photos, the manure has been allowed to build up to a severe point where the cow's legs are covered in it. Not only is this bad practice for keeping livestock, as it could cause health issues in cattle such as hoof rot, but something else our county code enforcement officer took note of while investigating this property is the way the water was draining from this manure-filled corral. The contaminated drainage water was going right through the neighboring property's yards. You can go to the next slide, Doug.
We have a message online saying that they are unable to see the slides online. Oh, Riley's on it. Okay, thank you.
I'll pause for a moment. All right, we're back. So the contaminated drainage water was going right through the neighboring property's yards, also in the RR2 zone. While farming are allowed in the RR2 zone, the current standard in the UCDC is 2 animals per acre, and the current language within the UCDC states structures and enclosures designed for animals shall be kept reasonably free and clean of flies and accumulated animal waste materials. The owner of this property shown in the photos was educated on this language by county code enforcement and worked with code enforcement over a period of time to bring their property into compliance. Next slide, please. Since the public notice was mailed out to affected property owners within Umatilla County on April 5th, 2024, planning has received a large volume of calls and in-person visits regarding the amendment. There seems to be a lot of confusion and misconceptions surrounding the proposed changes, which is why I prepared this PowerPoint presentation to help explain what is changing and what is not. The code language, next slide, please. The code language on the left will stay the same if the proposed amendment is not adopted. On the right would be the changes. Next slide, please. This proposed text amendment does restrict the number of roosters and other fowl with loud calls in non-resource zones, such as rural residential, increase the number of small livestock animals, goats, sheep, etc., from 2 animals per acre to 4 per acre, adds the same animal density standards to other non-resource zones, such as forest and mountain residential. Next slide, please. This proposed text amendment does not change the number of cows and horses allowed in non-resource zones, such as rural residential, affect resource zone land, such as exclusive farm use and grazing farm, change the property line setback standards for barns and other animal sheltering structures. As mentioned previously, it simply moves the current standard to the dimensional standards section within each zone where it is better suited. It does not change your property zoning. The current animal density standards for residential properties have been no more than 2 animals, goats, sheep, cows, horses, etc., per acre, and have been in place since 1972. While animal density standards are present in the FU10, RR2, RR4, RR10, CRC, and UC zones, the proposed amendment will add the same animal density standards to the MR, MUF, and FR zones. A specific addition addressing sanitation and proper animal food storage is intended to help curb disease and illness spread through rodents, animal feces, and flies. Next slide, please. Planning staff reached out to county land use planners in nearby Eastern Oregon counties to inquire about their current animal density regulations in rural residential zones. This slide shows those regulations within Baker County, Gilliam County, Grant County, Morrow County, and Union County. And you can see some of the things we're proposing aren't that different from counties surrounding us. And actually, in talking to other land use planners and through research, we found that Eastern Oregon versus Western Oregon has stricter animal density standards in their land use development codes. Next slide, please. Planning staff has done some research on standard animal husbandry practices for backyard chicken operations, hobby farms, as well as cockfighting operations. Exhibits N, O, and P within the hearing packet were sourced through this research. Sources used include a slideshow presentation from Oregon State University Extension Service, an article about backyard poultry published in Journal of Avian Medicine and Surgery, and the University of Idaho Extension. Next slide, please. The next several slides are from a PowerPoint presentation given by Oregon State University Extension Service, which discusses possible different regulations and standards that might be applied within urban areas when owning poultry in urban areas. Well, the specific presentation goes over urban considerations, and we have rural residential zone land in our county. Those rural residential zones are still primarily for residential use, and many of the considerations discussed in the presentation are pertinent to what we are talking about here today. You want to go to the next one? So this is talking about space requirements. That's something that would not be irregular to see being asked of you in a residential area. Next slide, please. Again, talking about setbacks, something that you would likely see in a residential area. Next slide. And also talking about proper food storage and keeping your animals on your own property as a courtesy to your neighbors. Next slide. And also talking about animal waste and flies and odors and just, proper animal care. Next slide, please. So, sorry, I lost where I was. The next few slides are excerpts from Backyard Poultry and Clinical Avian Practice from Journal of Avian Medicine and Surgery, Volume 30, Number 4, published in 2016. Within this article, the author asks a variety of questions and allows 7 different veterinarians to provide an answer. I have pulled 2 comments from veterinarians included in this article when discussing cockfighting, if you want to go to the next slide. So the question that both of them are answering is cockfighting is a phenomenon quite separate from the backyard poultry craze, but obviously the species involved overlap. What tips can you offer for recognizing roosters in facilities used for cockfighting? So Dr. Luna stated that the roosters are kept separate to prevent fighting, typically tethered to a post within their own private house, just out of reach of the next bird. And that video I was showing earlier from Milton Freewater, as well as other properties we've received complaints about, show this exact type of tethering the birds to individual barrels or little huts throughout the yard, where we presume cockfighting is going on. Next slide, please. And Dr. Morishita just kind of reiterates it. The major reason one would have a rooster, other than if you want fertilized eggs for hatching chicks, would be for a cockfighting facility. These birds are usually tethered individually outside, have a little teepee or a blue barrel house. And I just wanted to point that out. Next slide, please. The last slide about research was pulled from the 4-H Poultry Showmanship Questions by Lance T. Ellis and David D. Frame from University of Idaho Extension Service. I've included this excerpt to show the ratio of males to females that will provide the best fertility for a laying flock according to the 4-H organization. And they say about 1 male to every 10 females. Next slide, please. So the next few slides show a summary of comments made during public testimony at the May 2nd Planning Commission hearing and corresponding staff rebuttal. So the testimony is kind of a summary of what multiple people were saying, and then the rebuttal is taken directly from our minutes, which are in your packet. So multiple residents expressed they felt the language referring to other fowls, loud calls is too ambiguous and does not clearly define what species would be included in this definition. I stated the decision to exclude specific breeds from the proposed language and instead use terms such as similar sized livestock, similarly sized domestic birds, and other fowl known for loud calls was done in order to avoid having the development code be overly complicated and hyper-specific. Instead, planning staff and residents should use common sense when interpreting and applying the code. Also, a few residents questioned why county code enforcement couldn't just deal with the properties we've received rooster complaints about instead of proposing changes that affect the majority. Ms. Dovcheski stated we must have something in the code in order to respond to a complaint. Code enforcement can't do anything without a complaint unless it can be tied to our development code. Currently, if someone has 300 chickens contained in 1/4 of an acre on a 1-acre property, they're in compliance with our current code, regardless of how much a nuisance those chickens may be. Next slide, please. Several people asked why, if the rooster complaints stem from Milton Freewater, why make a change that affects the whole county? Again, Megan stated the problems with roosters is countywide, not exclusive to Milton Freewater. The video we shared at the last hearing and today is an example of a really extreme situation that happens to be in Milton Freewater. Also, multiple residents expressed concerns that this would prevent their children from participating in raising animals for programs such as 4-H and FFA. As I stated at the last hearing, 4-H and FFA projects would not be affected by these changes, they would still be permitted. The language that notes the special allowance for 4-H and FFA animal projects is included in each rural residential zone in the current development code, but not included in this application due to the fact we are not proposing to change any of that language. Next slide, please. Multiple attendees asked about how code enforcement would work to enforce the new animal density standards. Some people expressed concerns that the county would force them to cull their livestock if they were in violation of the code or take their animals away. Others asked what course of action they could take if this amendment is adopted and their properties are now in non-compliance. Ms. Dovchesky explained that the county has one part-time code enforcement field officer, and he doesn't drive around the county counting livestock in a pasture and calculating confinement standards in place. Code enforcement is mostly complaint-driven, and typically those complaints are environmental issues. If a complaint was received regarding the number of chickens, cows, or other livestock on a property, code enforcement takes circumstances into account and may give conditions or a warning period to allow property owners to come into compliance. She stated as long as the property owner is working with code enforcement and keeping in good communication with, that's as far as it would go, just a warning. If the proposed amendment passed and affected county residents did not want to make changes to adhere to the new standards, an application for a verification of non-conforming use could be applied for through the county planning office. The cost of this application would be $500. Next slide, please. And that's only if there's a code enforcement complaint. You don't need to come in unless you have a code enforcement complaint. And this slide shows how the Planning Commission voted, which I know you read in your packet, but I just wanted to draw it out for you really clear. So they made a motion to approve the section which addresses the issue of the number of goats and livestock of similar size and expand the numbers of animals from 2 per acre to 4 per acre. They made a motion to recommend denial of the section that outlines the new animal density standards for chickens, roosters, and other fowl. They made a motion to recommend denial of the part of the language that addresses proper sanitation in animal shelters and keeping animal feed in rodent-proof receptacles. And then they suggested an alteration to the text under uses permitted that it should say manufactured dwelling / mobile home, and they recommended approval of that. And last slide. This is my final slide. I just want to leave you with some thoughts to consider while you are thinking about this amendment. Even if a restriction on roosters isn't adopted today, the language around fowl needs to be quantifiable within the Umatilla County Development Code to make it enforceable. And a majority of the zones that would be affected are residential zones with their primary use being residential purposes. Using the land to farm or keep livestock is a secondary use in these zones and should not take precedence over others' abilities to enjoy the residential property where they reside and have a good quality of life. So that's the end of my slideshow. County staff are also requesting the proposed amendments be applicable in the future urban zone, which is located within Hermiston's UGB. The City of Hermiston's Joint Management Agreement, Section E10, requires county land development code amendments applicable in the urban growth area to be processed by the city. The JMA states that amendments may be initiated by the city, the county, or an affected person. Therefore, the City of Hermiston must co-adopt the text amendment for the standards to apply in the FU10 zone. In addition, Umatilla County is proposing an amendment to the UCDC, which clarifies the uses permitted with a zoning permit, specifically regarding dwellings in zones RR2, RR4, RR10, FR, MR, and MUF. The changes in the uses permitted with a zoning permit are being made to define what type of dwelling may be approved and how many may be permitted on a single tax lot, dependent on the zone. The proposed amendment does not change the number of dwellings allowed on each tax lot. The new language is only being used to clarify the existing code language to make it more clear. This hearing before the Umatilla County Board of Commissioners is the county's second evidentiary hearing for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I really appreciate that and the work you put into it. So at this time, I'm going to call for proponents, the applicant, and a representative.
It's just me. I'm done.
Okay.
Staff.
Okay, so I have a proponent here, Larry Bonifer. I can't quite, yeah, there he is. Also, I want to just clarify, I'm going to limit testimony to 3 minutes because there's quite a bit to get through. So if we can just keep it under 3 minutes. And with that, Mr. Bonifer.
Yes, Larry Bonner for 54761 Pine Creek Road, Western Oregon, 97886. What you guys are proposing, I would say, sounds more like communist China. This is not fair to the public. Telling people what they have to put food in, what they can have. I mean, this is communist China. This is not America no more, guys. This is wrong. This is not fair. Fair to anybody. I don't care where you live. I don't care if it's outside, because I don't care if you have mountain ground. Eventually, it's going to affect you too. Eventually, it's going to climb up the mountain. It's going to affect everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to call for oppositions, those in opposition. And I'm going to go with, there's one on the line, and I hope I don't say this wrong, but Renee Rappel.
Yes, I'm actually I'm opposing this.
Correct. And we're on oppositions now.
Okay. Thank you. So my concerns are, one, that limiting roosters, the comment about that was made about people only having roosters for hatching chicks is not correct. I have a flock. I have 2 roosters right now. We have a really bad hawk problem where I live. My roosters protect my girls. They alert them when there's a situation. I've lost a few roosters trying to protect their girls from these hawks. To complain that the roosters crow day and night is so incorrect. Roosters sleep the same as everybody else. The minute it's dusk out, they go to bed just like everybody else. And yes, they start crowing about 5 o'clock in the morning. But honestly, that's about work day for everybody else when we're all getting up. So to say that they're crowing day and night is inaccurate. I hatch my own chicks. We will have a lot of roosters at any given time. My roosters are separated from my hens. They're raised up until they're large enough to process, and then we eat them. What you guys are proposing would take that food away from me and my family. With regards to the cockfighting, absolutely, I am against that. But not everybody does that. The most of the time, people I know who farm, they do it for food. They do it to help them family, the neighbors. It's not about just creating issues. And the people who are complaining about people usually are Karens, or they have a real situation that they are concerned about. You know, I know a lot of people who have multiple animals on their property and they're all well cared for. I also know people who have one animal on their property and that poor thing is not even taken care of in the least. So you guys using the wording that you're using and the things that you're trying to pass really needs to be, it needs to be denied. You know, hire more people, create a animal control, because that's what's really needed out here. We need people, we need an animal control for all of the animals being dumped, in this county. We don't need this kind of stuff on people who are just trying to make a living and feed their families. Once upon a time, the government actually encouraged people to raise chickens in their backyards. They encouraged the self-sufficiency. Now all of a sudden it's like the government wants everybody reliant on them and the big companies that are pumping hormones and everything else within their meat. So work with the people, not against the people. That's what we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair Schaefer. Renee, can you state your name and your address for the record, please?
Oh, yes, sorry. Renee Ruppel, 41553 Peter Street, Pendleton, 97801.
So I thank you very much. And I do want to remind those who do get called to testify to please give your name and address for the record. With that, Alejandro Vieira Servato.
Bueno, yo soy Alejandro. My name is Alejandro Vieira Cerrato. I live in the Balur Road. Mi propiedad fue sacada en las fotos que estaban mostrando en las pantallas.
His property was shown on the pictures that you guys show on the screen right now.
Lo primero que quiero aclarar es que eso tiene más de un año.
He just wants to clarify that that's like a year ago.
Aquí tengo el warning que me llegó.
He
Por
has
eso.
a citation there or a warning.
Yo he tratado de cambiar todo en mi propiedad para prevenir cualquier molestia o problema con mis vecinos.
He was trying to find fix everything at his property so he don't be bothering his neighbors with all this stuff.
La policía ha ido a revisar los animales, 6, 7 veces, ha revisado la propiedad y no ha encontrado nada malo. Yo tengo recibos de todo el alimento que les compro.
The police has went to his house like 6, 7 times, and he never found out anything wrong. And he has everything, for the food for the animals and everything on the right place.
Cada vez que estoy afuera con mi familia o hago algo, los vecinos me acosan solo por el hecho de que tengo gallos. Igual que la policía solo trata de intimidarme, haciéndome preguntas sobre pelea.
All the time he's outside, like his house with his family. The neighbors keep looking at them or threatening him, or like even the police. They keep going to his house.
La verdad, esto es no solo un gusto, es una forma de vida.
This is not something that he likes. It's something for living.
Yo todas las gallinas que crío las sacrifico, no las comemos, los huevos. Si tenemos muchas gallinas es porque somos una familia y 3, 6 gallinas no nos van a alcanzar para un año.
He said he have a lot of hens, and then he just when they're ready to eat, they eat it, and then they have a big family, and they just eat it when they can, when they have to.
¿Qué es lo que realmente está buscando con supuestamente proteger los animales si no sabe nada de ellos?
What are you trying to do, like to protect if you don't know what you're doing with the animals? Or
Tengo pruebas de lo que hacemos con ellos.
you have proof that what he does with the animals.
Aquí las tengo.
You have it here with him.
Aquí las puede ver cualquiera que esté aquí. Tengo recibos del alimento, pruebas de lo que hacemos, y cualquiera de ustedes puede ir a ver mis animales y ver si están en mal estado o buen estado y poderles dar una explicación de lo que son ellos.
He has all the receipts and everything, the food for the animals. He has everything in place, and if you guys want to see anything, he can show to you guys like that everything is in place. If you guys want to see that.
I don't know, ¿quieren que les muestre las fotos
Do you guys want to see the pictures?
de lo que trato de hacer en mi propiedad?
What's he trying to do on his property?
Would you like to enter these in the record?
The association. Esa es more the here. It's only grass. Don't have animals here. I'm work. This is the neighbor. Everything have animals. The Evan. This is my roster. So arreglar todo en mi propiedad,
He's trying to fix everything on his property.
cualquier cosa que pueda afectarme ¿dónde? En Jackson.
Jackman.
Yo he tratado de arreglar todo en mi propiedad para que mis animales no se salgan, que es lo que supuestamente les molesta a los vecinos.
He was just trying to fix everything on his property. So because that's what it bothers the neighbors that his animals don't go to their
Quité
property.
todos los barriles,
He removed all the barrels.
ahí están hice un corral de láminas para que se enterrara el ruido.
He make like a
Y disminuyó un 80%. Yo he hecho completamente todo para arreglar.
he built a shed like
todo.
vas por muchos cosas para el alimento.
¿Eh?
Haces muchas compras para el alimento, mucho.
No encontré todo, pero
He didn't find everything, but he has the ones that he can find.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Esto poco a poco va a afectar a la economía porque todos los que
This will affect little by little to the economy. Little by little, it's going to affect.
Over a ton of feed a month. That's a lot of chickens. Okay, thank you.
Look.
Thank you.
Vas por mucha
No.
comida por los animales.
sí, es de 2022.
That's from the year 2022.
Okay. So
Es de 23. A ton por year.
That's from the
It's
2023.
for
That's
feed.
you buy
I agree.
per
I
yearly.
agree. 22. Okay, thank you.
Um, his wife wants to know if she can speak to you guys.
Israel, are we able to keep those photos to enter into the record?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
it is. Que se pueden dejar las fotos. A ellos ahí. O a ustedes. O for you. Nomás te las das, amigo.
So, aquí está. Estos son las tarjetas de cómo califican a los animales. And it shows.
That's the cards, like how they qualify the animals at the shows.
¿Dónde quedó la otra? Eso quiere decir que no está. Estos me los descalificaron porque no están descrestados. Eso
Those
es lo que
got
califican.
disqualified, and that's the ones that qualified.
Por eso les cortamos en la cresta.
That's why they cut the
Está
top of
dentro de
the
las reglas del show.
roosters.
Para
That's the
aquellos
rules for
que
the show.
piensan que es un maltrato.
For the people that think that it's a bad thing for the animals. It is?
De rules.
What size is your
Well,
property?
pretty much they have.
Thank you.
Um,
2 acres. Thank you.
I'm gonna help him interpret it a little bit what he said. So I, off the topic a little bit. So I coincidentally found him at a poultry show. Oh, Daniel Tejeda. I'm interpreting for him. I'm helping him a little bit. Yeah, because he missed a couple parts. So he was saying that the roosters need to be dubbed to enter that poultry show. If they're not dubbed with what you guys would call like a battle cut or whatever, if they're not dubbed, they'll be completely disqualified. So to enter that type of show, they have to be looking pretty and dubbed and with their combs off, because if not, you can't enter that show. And it's completely a professional show. Somebody comes down from Oregon and qualifies all a rooster. It's an old American guy that's been doing it for all his life, and the rooster has to be perfectly healthy, perfectly beautiful eyes, nice feathers, nice scales and everything, and you have to keep them in perfect shape if you wanna compete in those poultry shows. So that's why that's part of the reason why they'll be cut, and it's healthier to keep them in teepees. It's healthier to keep them in teepees than to pile them up all in a pen together, because when they're in together, they'll start pecking the feathers off, the loose feathers. They'll stress out more because they're always with their feathers. They'll be more fresh if they're more separate from the hens. It's like a stallion. You keep him with 20 mares, you know, he'll get kicked around, he'll get scabs all over. So you want to keep him away from the hens so he's healthier and more neat. And to enter in those poultry shows, that's what part of the deal you have to go through. And he was telling me before that he was having trouble. He's having trouble with the neighbors and stuff. They don't like him, obviously. Him and his roosters, but that's what he does, and it's misinterpreted that he fights or whatever. The cops has gone, like he said, 6-7 times, and never has had a problem. He's here to present himself, to show the proofs what he's doing with the roosters, and why this all started. That's actually the guy from Milton that they're showing his property there. He's here to confirm it. That's him there. That's his property. Matches everything. You guys saw the little to go into compliance. He built everything he needed to go to compliance. They're not bugging him now, so it shouldn't be an issue. But from my part, I see a lot of interpreting stuff from their part. I mean, they do say this and that, a lot of that, oh, it won't affect this, it won't affect that. I went to a party last weekend and I asked how the cows been doing, and they said that they have been getting bugged more often by the code enforcement because ever since they've been talking about eliminating animals, has had more trouble. And last week I talked to my neighbor because
Real quick, I'm gonna stop you because it sounds like you're testifying also.
yeah.
I did let you guys go over on the time limit because
Yeah.
of the translation
Yeah.
factor. So
Yeah, I'll just take my turn right now, because I did go off topic. You're right.
so if you want to fill out one of these cards, you're more than welcome to, and I can
I
come
did.
back to you later. Oh, you did already?
Yeah, you can go back to me later. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I just went off topic. Sorry,
I'm gonna take
but
your.
I did help him out a little bit.
Commissioner Schaefer, can this gentleman please finish his thought? Okay.
So I kind of forgot what I was saying, but
Sir, can you state your name and address?
yeah, my name is Daniel Tejeda, and it's 82276 Hat Rock Road.
And we just need you to finish your thought that you were just finishing up there.
So I did go to I've never gone in 10 years, or no, I've lived there 15 years. I do own some of the animals that go into this discussion. So I went to my neighbors and I asked them if everything was okay, if my animals are bugging them. They're like, no, we're good. And so I asked them, hey, is there anything I can help you with? I did notice that my chickens were eating some of your pig's food, and I was like, can I go buy you some feed for them? And I went to go take $200, and went to a feed store and I bought him 6-7 bags of pig feed, just to be courteous and just to help him out, us as chicken people, and just takes a little bit of communicating. But sometimes as neighbors, we don't communicate as often. Like I said, like 10-15 years I didn't communicate him, but I asked if everything was okay. He was good. He's a good neighbor. Not all of them, not everyone's a good neighbor, but he's been a good neighbor. And I asked him, and and I bought him some some pig feed, and we're good. We're good there. But he did mention that the code enforcement guys went to his house and asked him if those chickens were okay with him. If not, I mean, and that kind of really made me mad because ever since it's going on, and I feel like they're trying to cause something or something when we could be all good, but I could be screwed over. I make a living off of it. I make like 150,000 a year. I'm hoping to make 200 this season. I'm doing good. I feed my family off of it, and I want to grow, but I feel this is stopping me 100% because I can't have as much chickens, and I'm scared to. There's customers that want to, honestly, from my heart, like what's going on is there's customers that want to buy from me, and I can make some money, but I'm scared to take their money because what if I get my chickens taken away because I can have so much chickens? And that's how it's affecting they say, oh, it won't affect this, it won't affect that, it won't. You guys are all good. If it passes, then unless they complain, then you'll be screwed. But that's how it's affecting me right now. It hasn't even passed, and I don't even want to make business because I'm scared to not offer the chickens back to them because I can't sell them. Because what if it passes today? What if today passes? So I was waiting for today to make business, because if today passes, I'll have to get rid of those chickens, those roosters that I could have sold and made money, instead of making money and going to my neighbor and offering them pig feed because I'm doing good. I told him, hey, if I'm doing good, you'll do good. I'm renting some of my neighbor's spot because I'm growing so many. And I told them, you too. I gave him $100 like 3 days ago. I was like, here, as long as everything keeps flowing, business is right. I mean, we'll keep everyone happy, you know?
Thank you.
Just
Thank you.
real quick question, Daniel. So do you consider yourself a commercial?
I started from the bottom. I was nobody, but now I'm commercial. I feel like I'm commercial, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Israel, for translating for us. And sir, I'm going to, since you testified, I'm going to go ahead and put yours in the already testified pile, just so you're aware. Thank you. Jody Hinesley.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say I'm grateful that we have this kind of process where we can talk and have opinions and work together on this issue. I had done some research since our last meeting, and I just wanted to ask about a noise ordinance that we have, because this all came up from noise in the first place. So on Umatilla County Code Chapter 96 is noise control. And under 96.04, there is exceptions. And if you go to 96.04 G, it talks about the exceptions include sound caused by industrial, agriculture, commercial, or construction activities. And I just wanted to point out that I think roosters would probably fall under agriculture, and that we might want to define that section of the ordinance first before we go any further. But I also wanted to ask that we please remember that each small farm is unique, and limiting quantities is not going to magically solve any noise problems. And this is an example. I live on a 4-acre parcel. We live in RR4, where we're 4-acre minimums. And I can hear my neighbor's roosters down the road. They're not real loud, but I can tell when their roosters are crowing. But I thought this is a good opportunity. I don't have any roosters at this time. I just have hens. I've lost my roosters. I plan on getting some more. But this video is an example of my farm. This is out my back door, and this is my hen. So she's not as loud as she really is. Like, it's actually louder than that, but she does that in the morning, and it's one hen. Her name's Henrietta, because she wants out of the coop. And then once I let her out of the coop and she free ranges, she's fine, but she carries on in the morning. So I just wanted to give an example of some noise that's not a rooster. But I think we could figure out a better way to deal with these issues instead of making a blanket restriction for the whole county. I think that each individual situation is unique and that we are capable of figuring out what we can properly take care of. And I know this code came back from 1972, but I would like to think that whatever issues we were dealing with in 1972 are probably not the same issues we're dealing with now. And that when we had our last meeting, that there were several of us that were opposed to this. We were here for almost 5 hours, and there was
I'm gonna stop you. We've hit that 3-minute mark, but would you just give your address for the record, please?
Oh, sorry. Jody Hinesley, 32945 Thorny Grove Lane, Hermiston, Oregon.
Thank you very much. Next person, Robert Smith.
Good morning. My name is Robert Smith. My address is 80348 South Edwards Road in Hermiston. And I have a prepared statement, but I would like to ask a question of the panel first. In one of your slides, did you imply that if someone was out of code, that for $500 they could be brought into code?
So I was going to say most of the questions till rebuttal, but I'll go ahead and answer this one. So in the county's ordinance, we have a section on verification of non-conforming use. And what that means is if you have a use that's occurring on a property, in this case, chickens or roosters, and it's not in compliance with the county's current standards, so this could be for just about anything, you could go through the process to verify that that use existed before the new standard was in place. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to go out there and cite everybody for having, non-compliance if this code is adopted today. Basically, it would only come into play if somebody had a complaint. Let's say, 3 years down the road from today, we have a limitation on chickens and somebody complains that somebody has too many chickens on their property, it's not in compliance with the current standard, then code enforcement would investigate that with a visit to the property owner, a conversation, and a warning. And part of the measure to compliance would be the property owner proving that they were in compliance before that code was implemented. So if it was adopted today, then yesterday they had, they were in compliance with the current standard, which is 25% of the total lot area.
And the fee for that would be?
Whatever the fee is at the current time. Right now, it's $500.
So I could get back in compliance if I pay you $500.
It's just proving that you were in compliance before this regulation was put in place.
Both saying the same thing.
Yes. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
I thank you for observing my right to speak today. In a cursory reading of the proposal at issue, it doesn't sound too bad. Some word groups have been changed or relocated. However, this is a cursory reading. Background paragraphs seem to point out the moral high ground, stating that we have received many complaints and we're tasked with making corrections, and this is what we propose. However, it is not clearly stated in the proposal how this corrected by the proposal. Indeed, what the planners have attempted to do is correct a behavioral problem through codification. And using this moral high ground, they make other changes to the existing codes by stating only minor changes, will again assume moral high ground by using animal and personal well-being. The adage, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, applies here. Do we not have punitive laws for animal cruelty, being an accessory to crimes, or conspiracy to commit crimes on books? We are here today because we feel encroached upon by people who have never met, who don't know us, what we're about, and want to group us into a nice, neat package called land use constituents. But actually, we are the people and we seek to have a voice. 2024 may not be the best time for the commission to change existing codes to be more restrictive. Indeed, the only changes that should occur should be in the way of easing restrictions in land use. After all, we the people have chosen not to live in the city, but in the country where we can have animals and outbuildings and do as we choose freely. Thank you.
Thank you. Sunny Danforth.
Thank you again, Sunny Danforth, 225 Maple Avenue. First, I want to address the things to consider up there. And so the first one says the language around foul needs to be quantifiable within Umatilla County Code development. It already is. It says it's 25% allowed. It doesn't have a number, and I don't believe that it needs to have a number. I believe that I really like everything that our code, our planning commission is doing, our planners, planning department. But so I wanted to address that it already is quantifiable. Not everything needs change. Sometimes people think, well, it has to be changed because it's 35 years old or 40 years old. Well, not necessarily does it need to be changed. Also, on the second one, it says using the land, no, the majority of the zones that would be affected are residential zones with the primary use being for residential purposes. So you're saying that if a person decides to buy 10 acres, RR10 or RR4, that is going to be residential primarily. Well, people might want to buy RR4 and have it be pasture land. So that is not a residential purpose. So I actually agree with that statement that it is primary. It's zoned RR. You don't have to put a house on it. It's not mandatory that you put a residence on the property. It is an allowed use, much like having a horse or having a cow or having some chickens and roosters is an allowed use. So I don't believe that we as a society should be penalizing the population for the actions of a few. This all started, as I understand it from here, the hearing was originated with 2 complaints on a couple of different properties. And this is where we're at. I would like to say that what was passed by the county planning department, I stand by that. I think that was very good. I do not believe one size fits all is a solution for what is for an RR2 or an RR4 or an RR10. I don't believe it's all one size fits all. I also don't think that we should look to other counties. Our county is unique. We don't have to look, oh, what did they do over there? And let's apply it over here. I don't agree with that statement, and I see it quite often, especially at city council meetings. And I also don't believe that we should be putting residential standards, as I heard today, on rural properties. What you have in a residence.
That's time,
Can I just
Sunny.
finish my statement, please? So what you have in a residence that maybe is a quarter acre and a quarter acre, to try to apply that to rural residential that is larger acreage, I don't believe is correct. And one last thing, if I might. I think communication goes a long way. And if we all are neighborly and communicate with one another, the world would be a better place. Thank you.
Don't disagree with you there. Thank you. Bernard Klein.
My name's Bernard Klein. I live at 1525 Northeast Wagner Lane, Hermiston. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak here. So, a couple things that struck me. One is at the previous meeting, one of the planning commission people made the statement that we were trying to kill a mosquito with a sledgehammer. And I think that really sums up where we're at. And then another person mentioned about this is sort of communist type stuff. And I've had numerous discussions with local people around me, and they're shocked that we're having this discussion because they didn't realize all the limitations and they don't agree with them. So some things to think about. I think we need to give a lot of, we were at that meeting, it was 4 or 5 hours, and it wasn't until the 4th hour that the staff mentioned that this variance was $500. That was pretty traumatic. Like, so someone else is being held out and will be added at the last minute. We say that, well, we've got these regulations and we expect our auditors and people going out checking to use common sense. Well, that's only as good as a person there. It's only as good as the leadership above them. So if we set ourselves up with rules that could be interpreted differently, then we're setting ourselves up for failure and for a lot bigger problems to come. So I think where we're at, I like the idea of moving the proposal from 2 goats or sheep or small animals up to 4. But I think the rest of it, we just need to stay out of. Another thing that came out of that last meeting was at the very end, somebody stood up and asked a question. And they said, of the people on the stage, how many live in the city? How many live in the country? And guess what? The city is trying to tell the country people how to live, which should say something. We should dictate our own destiny, not have somebody who's living in the city telling us how to live in the country. We're in the country because we chose to be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deborah Aylett. And I'm way okay with that. Not the other part, but with him speaking for you.
My name's Earl Aylett. My address is 29732 Royce Lane. I live in the neighborhood that's a 1 acre next to rural 4. And for the we've been there for 30 some years, 1992. And when we moved there, our property was adjacent to a pasture with 2-3 horses in it. And we bought the property with it knowing that it was a rural 4. As years went on, that property sold, that property was divorced, different reasons, 2 different owners, and now it becomes a 1 acre riding arena with barns that house hundreds of trucks and trailers and stuff during the year for whatever rodeo event or whatever. And we live upwind from 1 acre worth of blowing horse manure that I have spent thousands of dollars removing from the roof of my house and property. I have to have a mower in my yard because my wife can't stand the horse manure is around her riding lawnmower when she does it. So now we've had to resort to using hired help to do it, putting them at risk, which is not fair in itself, but it's our only alternative. We are next to rural 4, which is 2 animals per acre. And in the years that we've lived there, which is a lot of years, we have experienced the county and the enforcement system within the county that will do nothing to resolve the issue. I've had Burroughs, I've had Rowan, I've had all of them out there counting animals that they're not in compliance. The property I'm talking about is 6 acres. That would mean they would be allowed 12 animals. Well, the last thing that made me quit making complaints was the fact that they rented a piece of property, couple more acres, and said they could add that to their 6 acres that they own, which is commingling and is not legal, and that 2 acres belongs to that acreage. You know, I heard comments about being by the country and in the city. The person that owned that property, when they divided it, the Dickinson edition, it was a farm. It was a big farm. And they divided it into 1 acres, making it rural city, if you see what I'm saying. But those people that bought that 4 acres and bought the 1 acres had that, they knew that when they bought the property. It was part of their purchase agreement. And they knew that, you know, someday they needed to confront these issues.
I look forward to the rebuttal. Thank you, sir. Cynthia Carmona.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Carmona. I'm wife of Alejandro Vida Cerrato. I just wanted to state that ever since we got to the property, we just had some nasty looks from the neighbor. And sorry, I'm getting nervous.
Can I get you a little closer on the microphone? Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that they've never really left us alone. It's always been an issue. Yeah, we have roosters and they are annoying, but we complied. We got a citation. We moved them. You can't hear them anymore. They were really right next to us through our home. And now you can't even hear them when you're inside the house. So we complied, we moved them. And then I did hear that last meeting, apparently our dogs was also an issue. And that's kind of funny because the neighbor actually brought our dog over because I don't know how he's getting out, but he got out one time. And I was like, I'm so sorry. You know, we're trying to do everything we can to keep him inside. And she's like, no, we love him. Don't worry. We love when he comes over. And it's kind of like, well, you know, you're saying something here, you know, trying to get us in trouble, but then you're telling me something else in person. So I'm just not sure where the issue is. I guess it's the noise, but I mean, they're animals. My husband works all day, every day. This is something he just loves. It's nothing he's doing as far as like, he's not fighting them. He takes really good care of them. He showed the receipts that he shows them. He buys the food by the ton and he gives them vitamins. He gives them shots. He takes really good care of the dogs. We've really tried our best, and I don't think it's fair to take something away if it's something that it's a passion about him. It's something he grew up doing. And, you know, we also eat them. It's not just to have them there for show or to be annoying to the neighbors. It's a way so that we can also eat, and it's a provide for our family and for our family members too. We give them some chickens, and we have to keep them for a long time so that they can get bigger and obviously build up some meat and cook them, or else we're just gonna eat pure bones. So like I said, we have tried. I don't know what the issue is now. I agree with most of everyone here, like Renee, you know, I don't think it's fair that it be taken away just because of a few complaints. The cops have came 7, 8 times, and I guess one time they came because we were fighting roosters. The roosters did get in a fight because they got out of the cage, but we weren't out there. We weren't out there. I didn't see them, or else I would have gone and separated them. But it's of nature for them to automatically fight, and that's not on us. And when the police went, they're like, no, they said they saw you guys. Put a timer too. They said they saw you guys there, and I'm like, well, you can come and look. And he saw blood, and I'm like, yeah, there's blood. He's like, okay, so how can you explain that? And I was like, well, they were fighting. They got loose. I can't do anything about that. But other than that, it's of nature. And he wanted to look in the garage. I let him look. I don't know if he was trying to look for maybe blades or something to point out that we're fighting roosters, but we are not. It's just a hobby, a lifestyle that my husband likes. And I just hope that you guys can see that.
Thank you. Could you give your name for the, or address for the record, please?
53164 West Blue Road.
Thank you very much. Okay, again, we're not going to have any comments from public agencies. So now at this time, I call for rebuttal.
Thank you, Chair Danforth. This is Megan Dovchevsky for the record. So I wrote down some of the notes here from testimony, and I'm not going to respond to everything, just the things that are pertinent. I'll start off by saying that in the residential and our other residential zones, under the intents and the primary uses section, it talks about what the intent is of that zone. And the primary use is residential. It does allow for certain farm uses, but it does have an exception. And one thing that it excludes is commercial poultry or hog farms. So again, that's not anything that's new. That's been in the code since 1972 when it was first adopted. But I just wanted to point that out that, while it does allow for some farm uses, it's intended to be a hobby farm, not a commercial farm. Regarding the question about, looking at each situation, each property differently based on their unique situation, that just certainly isn't enforceable with county code enforcement. In order for code enforcement to do anything about an issue or complaint, it has to be something that's cited in our development code, and it has to be something that somebody isn't complying with. Additionally, animal cruelty is something that's enforced by the county sheriff's office, and based on communication with them, and that's included in your packet, that's very difficult to prove for them, and it's not always something that's viable. 25% lot area is what's currently in our code for poultry and other fowl. So if somebody has a 4-acre lot, they could have a 1-acre corner blocked off for chickens or other fowl, and they can have as many of those animals in that 1 acre and be in compliant with our current standards. As you've seen from the pictures, that's often problematic when it comes to hygiene, and it's not, again, enforceable. So what staff were trying to solve was, having a codified number that could be counted, similar to the 2 or the 4 per acre for livestock. There was a comment made about, if a pasture was bought, or if a property that was residential was bought for pasture, they didn't have to use it for residential use. That's correct. It could be used as a pasture, but again, the primary intent of those zones is for residential use. An issue that we often explain at the counter is, somebody has a 2-acre rural residential property that they just want to have for pasture, but they don't have a dwelling on the property. We can't issue a permit for like a garage or shop building because it has to be accessory to a residence in that zone. Another comment was made about, somebody asked the question at the Planning Commission hearing, who lived in the city versus who lived in the county. I just wanted to point out that there was more than one person. There's quite a few people on our Planning Commission as well as staff that don't live in the city. Mr. Aylett talked about a manure issue that he's experiencing from his neighbor, and I'm sorry to hear about that. It's not an issue that I've been aware of as long as I've been with the county, But I don't work with code enforcement, but Mr. Aylett, we do have a new code enforcement officer, so I would encourage you reaching out to him to try to resolve that issue, because it sounds like it is something that is against our current code regulations. Oh, yeah. There was another comment made about code enforcement going out there and talking to neighbors. Again, to my knowledge, code enforcement isn't doing that right now. We respond to complaints. We have one field officer who deals with complaints and responding to those. But a lot of his tasks are dealing with, bigger environmental issues. That's all I had for rebuttal, unless there are more questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Were you waving for a question? Any questions from the commissioners? No? Okay. So at this time, we could either call for a continuance or keep the record open if granted, or we can go ahead and move forward with deliberations. Okay. At this time, I'm going to close the hearing, and we're going to reopen our regular scheduled meeting for the Board of Commissioners. With that, what are the wishes of the board?
For discussion's purpose, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve as the planning department, the code ordinance change as the planning department presented.
You're not going to split them up, Dan?
What's that?
You're not going to split these up?
We have two. So the first motion would be for the first ordinance as presented. So that would be going back.
P95-24.
I believe that's correct. I think it's page 4.
No, that one is 24. Is that what you're on? That's the other one. That was the first one we did.
Not quite
24.
for sure what you're asking, Dan.
24 is the first one, the mapping. The T09524 amendment of Umatilla County Development Code adopting the official zoning map as an electronic map layer.
That's your motion?
No, that was the first one we did.
Right. That's the motion. I'm making a motion to approve that as planning commission presented.
I believe that has already been.
We've already done
moved
that one.
and acted on.
We did that before we went into this public hearing.
Okay.
So we're looking at 94-23. Correct.
Okay. I make a motion to to approve motion T94-23 as presented by the Umatilla County Planning Department.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I think that it's only fair for all the people that came out today that we split these up. And instead of making it a motion as one, just because I think that there's a lot of questions, and especially they would probably like to know how the commission sits on this. And so instead of a blanket motion, I would like to split the 4 of them up, just like the planning commission did.
Okay, so staff just put it up on the board, and we can see it in front of us on our screens.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw my motion and let you make your motion.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and start with the first one, and I do make a motion to recommend approval of UC. Megan, do I have to read all this through? Is it the whole thing? Okay. A motion to recommend approval of UCDC 152.118A, 152.133A, 152.158A, 152.163A, 152.173A, 152.218A, 152.233A, 152.263A, and 152.338A. And what this does is it addresses the number of goats and livestock of that similar size to from 2 per acre to 4 per acre. So I make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. The next one, I do recommend denial of UCDC 152.118B, 152.133B, 152.158B, 152.163B, 152.173B, 152.218B, 152.233B, 152.263B, and 152.338. Is that 338B was made. And this is the animal density standard that was recommended for chickens, roosters, and other fowl. And my motion is to deny this.
Yeah, motion is made. Is there a second? Okay. Without a second, motion dies. Third one.
I'm I move to recommend denial of UCDC 152.118C, 152.133C, 152.158C, 152.163C, 152.173C, 152.218C, 152.233C, 152.63C, and 152.338C. And this addresses sanitation as far as animal shelters, corrals, that type of thing. And my motion is to recommend a denial.
Motion's made. Is there a second? Okay, I'm going to second that motion. With that, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, microphone.
Opposed.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Okay, next one.
And then the last one, a motion, I make a motion to approve and alter the text under uses permitted with the RR2, RR4, RR10, MUF, FR, and MR zones under uses permitted B1A, manufactured dwellings as provided 152.013 to state manufactured dwelling mobile home. And my recommendation or my motion is to approve.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Did you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to ask the planning department to take in consideration today's testimony and to review their recommendations and bring them back.
For all of them or just the one regarding roosters and chickens, the animal density standards?
Right, we only have two that were not addressed. So those two.
I think there's only
Just one, Commissioner.
Oh, you're right.
Doran.
My mistake. Yes, just the one.
Commissioner Doran, can I ask, you're just asking us to take into consideration the testimony and then come back before you with a new request?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, a motion's been made. Is there a second? Okay. Were you going to second that?
I'll second with questions. Can I ask questions?
Yep.
Commissioner Doran, why?
I think that we need to take into consideration the work that the planning department put into this. I have a lot of issues on actually some of the comments today that I don't think were extremely clear. We had testimony today on commercial chicken areas that definitely don't apply under this code ordinance recommendation. We had a couple of comments on numbers of chickens. I'm not sure, or roosters. I'm not sure everybody was clear on that. So I think that I would like to see us bring it back in a clearer form.
Can I ask counsel, does this mean we would be reopening the hearing or extending the hearing out for a later date?
Actually, it'd come back as another proposal.
Okay, that's what
Commissioner Doran, I certainly appreciate where you're coming from. As far as clarity goes, I certainly heard some things today that I didn't consider. The one drawback to this is all these people have taken time off today and have been building up to this. And so I'm sorry that they're not going to see an outcome, a deny or approval today. So I certainly apologize to you for that. And I appreciate you bringing your time and all of your testimony to come in front of us. But clarity is probably a good idea.
I can't say it any better than you did. There's nothing greater than the public participation in this and all actions that the county undertakes. It would be great to see this much participation in all of our actions and all of the programs that we look at that affect Umatilla County as a whole. And I think that's the big thing here. We have to look at how everything affects the whole county.
Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion carries. I'm sorry, could you use the microphone and ask that question, please?
You're saying that you want more clarity. What would be more clarity? You want the number of what we have in our property, or what would make it more clear for you guys?
The motion was to ask the planning department to come back with more clarity on this and to review the comments that were made today.
Okay, but you still want to open the.
I don't know what the planning commission is going to bring back. We just requested them to review the comments made today and take those into consideration and bring back a proposal.
The record is now closed and we've just asked staff to clarify what we have heard today from all of you, and they're going to summarize that and get back to us. Does that sound about right, Doug? Thank you. It'll be addressed in one of our commission meetings, which are public, open to the public, and via state law, we do have a hybrid option as well. Thank you. Very good question. And those online, the question was, will the people of the public get to hear the decisions that we make when we get back from staff, just for the record. Thank you. I'm sorry, say that again. Are we going to send out mailers? No, we'll just post it online as to when it's going to be on the agenda, and it'll be on that point. We won't be asking for public input on this.
Oh, well, actually, this is a land use matter, and so a Measure 56 notice would have to go out if it's going to be changing any proposed changes that would limit uses.
Okay, I stand corrected.
I have a question, Mr. Olson. Is this going to go through the whole procedure again? Will it go in front of the Planning Commission once again?
Depending on what the proposal looks like, it probably will go back to the Planning Commission.
So the whole, this
Yes.
whole one motion will go all the way through the process.
Basically, my understanding of the motion is that it's going to give the planning department the opportunity to review and the input and determine what they'd recommend for any type of animal density changes for chickens or fowls.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds clear as mud. So, all right, thank you. With that, we will be adjourned until 1 o'clock, and we'll resume our regular scheduled board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, that didn't work.